Today I want to explain to you the reasons why how you buy is how you sell and how you can use the behavior mirror model to mimic the prospect's behavior for your own advantage and make way more money. Now this might be surprising for some people, but the reason you struggle to close deals is not a lack of understanding of the prospects, but a lack of understanding of yourself. Now the core idea here is that you need to pay more attention to your own purchase decisions. Every hesitation, objection, and final yes that you have in your own purchases are a perfect reflection of your prospect's mental processes. And cracking this personal code for yourself will actually make selling almost effortless for you. Research shows that 73% of high-ticket closers fail not because of a lack of technical skill, but because they cannot really connect with the prospects on a deep psychological level. Closers can know every sales technique and yet fail because they miss the emotional cues and the psychological journey of the buyer. So in other words, there's an expression for this in English: they can't read the room. Cultural differences add another layer of psychological distance, making it even harder to bridge the gap and understand the unspoken rules of the prospect's decision-making processes. Now, the key to understand here is psychological empathy. Top performers seem to read minds because they actually have developed a deep understanding of buyer psychology, not from studying the prospects, but from studying themselves. Your own buying patterns are the true blueprint for understanding everyone else's. Every significant purchase decision follows a predictable mental and emotional sequence. The first one is the research phase, where you gather information to build confidence in the decision. The second one is the hesitation phase, where fear starts kicking in and the brain generates reasons not to buy to protect yourself against potential loss. And then the last stage is the final trigger, where there is an emotional release or logical justification that makes the purchase feel safe and necessary. Now, during a high-ticket purchase, there are three major cognitive biases that you need to pay special attention to. The first one is the halo effect, and this is a positive first impression which colors the entire perception of the offer. That's why the first impressions are extremely important. The second bias is the mere exposure effect, and this comes down to the idea of how familiar the prospect is about the offer. So seeing the offer multiple times before the actual sales call actually increases the comfort on the prospect's mind before the sale. And the third type of bias is the loss aversion. And this is the idea that the fear of losing money is a more powerful motivator than the excitement of gaining something new. Now, the bottom line here is that most closers, they experience these exact buying patterns as buyers, but fail to connect these personal insights to their professional sales approach. Now, a clear sort of pattern where you can see this happening is when the closer is trying to be pushy. So in this case, he's ignoring these psychological realities. For example, he could be pushing for a decision during the research phase when it's still way too early. Now, the right approach on these cases would be to lean onto more natural approaches where you would be aligning with these patterns. So for example, you could be providing reassurance during the hesitation moments instead of trying to push the person into the sale. Now, let me explain exactly how the behavior mirror model works. Your personal buying behavior is a perfect mirror of your prospects. This three-step model turns your self-awareness into a superpower. So all you need to do here is to honestly analyze the entire decision-making process for your last 5 significant purchases. So you could be asking yourself questions like, what were the triggers that made you buy? Or what were the emotions that were going through your head while you were thinking about buying? Also, another question that you can ask yourself on these scenarios is, what was the real reason you bought? The second step would be analyzing your own resistance. So you need to think about the times you said no to a salesperson. You can also ask yourself, okay, so what did the salesperson who overcame my own resistance do differently? Now, the third step that you need to focus on is to identify your own motivations. So you want to uncover the deep psychological drivers behind your own purchases. So you think you are more motivated about status, security, convenience, achievement, or fear of missing out. This self-awareness allows you to stop guessing what prospects are thinking, and you can start predicting their own hesitations and anticipate their resistance and really understand their emotional driver because you have already seen them in yourself. Now, another key factor on this whole process for yourself is studying your own no responses, which in fact is actually way more valuable than studying your own successes. These moments reveal the universal psychological barriers that prevent people from buying. Now, I'm going to give you 3 examples of things that you should avoid. So the first scenario that I want you to print in your head is the pushy car salesperson. So as you know, this sort of behavior actually triggers a defensive "I'm just looking around" response. The second scenario would be the mall kiosk seller, and in this case, their interrupting approach feels forced and uncomfortable. Another scenario that you should be avoiding at all costs is the unsolicited insurance caller. So in this case, their pitch feels manipulative from the get-go before it even begins. So the idea that I want you to take from here is that the triggers that make you feel pressured, interrupted, or manipulated are the same triggers affecting your prospects. So understanding what makes you say no actually allows you to avoid creating those same conditions for them. So the stated reason for a no, like I need to think about it, is rarely the real reason. The true cause is often a deeper psychological state, like a lack of trust or a feeling of being pressured. Addressing this underlying emotion is way more effective than fighting the surface level objection. So you actually need to learn to read your prospects' minds through your own experience. Your own buying motivations contain the blueprint for understanding your prospects' minds because the core human drivers are universal. Think about the questions you had during your last big purchase. Things like, what's the return policy? Will I actually use this? These are the same unspoken concerns that the prospects might have, so you can address them proactively before they even become objections. This deep understanding actually allows you to shift from trying to convince to helping someone navigate their own natural decision-making process. When you implement this, conversations become effortless because you are preventing resistance instead of fighting it. Implementing this behavior model leads to rapid, measurable results. You ask better questions, anticipate resistance, and know when to push or pull back. Using this method will help you increase your close rates and build stronger client relationships. It will also lead to less stressful interactions because you stop taking rejection personally because you understand that it's a normal part of human psychology and not a reflection of your own worth. This model helps international closers connect authentically with US prospects by understanding that while cultural expressions may differ, the underlying human psychology of buying is universal. The truth is that the best closers don't sell. They help prospects buy in the same exact way they themselves would actually want to buy. So what I want you to do now is to analyze your next big purchase decision using this behavior mirror model. And I want you to notice your research, your resistance, and your final trigger. Remember that mastering sales begins with mastering yourself.